Welcome, everybody. Let me put on my glasses here. This was completely Jeff Braden's idea. Good enough. Thank you, Jeff. I'll leave these on the podium if anybody else wants to take advantage of them. They're sitting right here. You know, when you leave college, it's easy to leave a few things behind, and we're ultimately a remarkably thoughtful institution. And as we cleaned out your rooms, found a few things. So I'm just going to spend a couple minutes here, and I'll show you some of this stuff. If it's yours, then after this assembly, you can pick them up. So here's my basket of goodies here. Field hockey players? Do you have a field hockey player out there? Yeah, I didn't think so. I think this was a hazing instrument at Teak. No, I was wrong. This is it. What else do we have here? Oh, this looks good. A pair of basketball shorts. Yeah. Lloyd Smith? Right afterwards, Lloyd. Yep, they're yours. Yep. Oh, some turtle left behind. Always a turtle. Oh, this looks pretty Beloit Planish to me. Yeah. Margaret Manos, is this yours? Yep. Just possible. Wow. A baseball jersey, look at that. Yeah, I think that was found in Theta House. So here's something to think about. If you got a turntable anymore, a few record albums that might be memorable. Yeah, young Bob Dylan, and is that possibly someone's here? Yeah. Here's it looks like there was a Beatles fan. Meet the Beatles. Yeah, Hard Day's Night. And then the big kahuna, 50th year anniversary. John, is this yours? Frisbee. Oh, and last but isn't this a Beloit College trophy to be proud of? Yeah, and has something maybe to do with golf, but golf is clearly secondary to the to this operation right here. I'll just leave these things sitting here, and if your memory is a little bit shaky, you can sort of jog it a little bit and see whether any of these are yours as the next hour goes on. I look at these fans. It is hot. Yeah, searing. You want my prediction? It's going to get worse. By the time you're singing Domine Salvum Fac, you would rather be dead. And the humidity, right? It's steaming. Don't even think about touching the person next to you. It's going to be sticky and disgusting. All this was completely predictable. We knew days ago it was going to be clammy. No way you want me up here saying blah, blah, blah. Well, you are just one nasty, sweaty mess. Had it been a normal June day, I would definitely have tried to frame the importance of this moment, your triumphant return. I would have connected your time at Beloit to your successes. I would have quoted Chapin and Emerson. I would have reminded you of your tutelage at the hands of Bob Ehrman or Les McAllister or Milt Fader or Scott Crom or Marion Fass. I would have asked you not to take for granted the relationships formed at Beloit that have lasted for your lifetime, and I would have figured out a way to get in a plug for the powerhouse. Impressive, isn't it? If I quizzed you now in the last sentence, 75 of you would simply say, all I heard was blah, blah, blah. Still, it's a shame not to say a word, not a single word, about why you, Beloit College's alumni, are both the lifeblood of this college and the living proof of this college's worth, but it is sweltering. But even through this hot, humid, muggy haze, it's really good to look out at all of you and see you here, as clammy as you are. We are back together at this college, and that feels pretty good together. Even in this heat, being here together matters. This college is, after all, kind of crucible. We are a living metaphor, a sweaty, somewhat disgusting, but gloriously, collectively clammy metaphor. A crucible whose contents are about to be stirred together by these amazing honorees. Have you paid attention to their accomplishments? Jamie's been the world's greatest ambassador ever for the college. Zainab is courageously speaking truth to power at great personal risk. Margaret's work, Maggie's work on inclusivity and equity, stunning. Anne's trajectory places her among America's key leaders in secondary school education. And John has single-handedly made Tim Allen famous and rich. That Beloit College played a part in their lives shines such a glorious light on this place. Indeed, Tim Allen should be writing Beloit College a big honking thank you check. A crucible, a place where you put materials, elements, and you add heat. And these materials and elements are transformed into something new, something with greater worth, something of greater value, adding the right elements at the right time in the right space, encouraging those molecules and those elements to expand in the right way, prompting them to bond in the right way in new ways with other molecules. Copper and tin transforms into bronze, iron and carbon transforms into steel, kaolin, quartz, and alabaster come together to form porcelain. We are a college that changes lives. We are a crucible. Bring on the heat. Learn to communicate effectively, persuasively, aesthetically, think analytically, reflect bravely, innovate with substance, reason with evidence, act ethically, confront complexity creatively, collaboratively, and cross-culturally, and do all this around a disciplinary foundation. Be educated broadly and think deeply. Habits of mind, habits of being, smelted. You were smelted. You continue to be smelted today. We come together to be smelted. We come together today in this crucible and embrace this crucible for the metaphor that it is. Welcome to your Beloit College reunion. Welcome to this glorious celebration of your classmates and their lives of purposeful consequence. All immediate evidence to the contrary. The next 40 minutes should be really, really cool. It is a great day to be among so many wonderful Beloiters. Thank you for being here. Yeah, I invite our choir up to offer us a song. Are we ready for this? All right.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Todd Hansen, class of '89, and I am the Alumni Board President. Without further ado, I'm going to jump into what everybody is here today, which is the specifics of the Alumni Association bylaws. Pursuant to the laws and constitution of the Alumni Association, the Board of Directors has forwarded the following slate nominees to stand for re-election to a second term on the board. They are Duncan Roch, class of 1992, and Brooks Rendell, class of 1998. Is there a second for this? All approve, say aye. All disapprove, say nay. Congratulations to Duncans and Brooks. This really is a very fun day every year for the college, hearing these great stories of our fellow Beloiters. Today we have 5 people who will receive Distinguished Service Citations or Young Alumni Award, and they join some very notable Beloiters who followed before us. They join arms with previous recipients, including Marshall Carlton Peace, class of 1902, with decades-long service to the betterment of the fields of healthcare and pediatrics. Henley Dudley Porter, class of 1932, member of one of the most illustrious families identified with Beloit and a famed member of the Eastman Codex Company. Barbara Roth, 1937, chemist, developer of the anti-cancer agent methotrexate, conservationist and founding president of the Audubon Society, and of course, these alumni stalwarts. Nancy Workley-Boutel, class of 1957, college president and chairman board of trustees. Ed Herr, class of 1957, and Dr. Ben Galloway in the house, class of 1962. Ben? Accomplished medical doctor, forensic pathologist, and Beloit Buck Booster, of course. These are the luminaries to which we point when asked who we hope our students will become. And now these 5 will join these recipients of Beloit College's highest honors, the Distinguished Service Citation and Young Alumni Award. I now have the honor and privilege of introducing our first recipient. Please join me in welcoming Jo Beth Williams to introduce her husband and our first recipient, John Pasquin, class of 1967.
You do not put nose and glasses in front of an actress and expect her not to put them on. Since I have been married to the honoree John Pasquin for close to 40 years, there are things I could tell you about him, believe me, but we'll talk later. For now, I'll try to keep to a few pertinent facts. Oh, plosives, I'm too close. He gave both the Phi Beta Kappa speech and the commencement speech when he graduated from Beloit 50 years ago. He had not planned to go to graduate school, but then he changed his mind and he talked his way into Carnegie Mellon a month before the school term started. 2 years later, they asked him to join the faculty. The first play he directed in New York, Moonchildren, ran for over a year, and he won an Obie for it. The first TV pilot he directed, Growing Pains, became a hit that ran for 8 years. The next pilot he directed, Home Improvement, became a huge hit, thank you, Tim Allen, and ran for 9 years. The first movie he directed, The Santa Claus, made over $150 million in its first theatrical release and is a classic that is still shown every holiday season. I have done 3 plays, a number of TV projects, and a feature film with him. I am an actress who has had the good fortune to work with a number of great directors over the years. Steven Spielberg, Lawrence Kasdan, Blake Edwards, to name drop. A few. But I can honestly say that John Pasquin is the best director with actors that I have ever worked with. Actors love him, and they want to keep on working with him. I was cast in a play by John in 1974, and I loved working with him. I had no idea then that he would be the leading man in my life, but he is. He's a wonderful husband and father, as well as a director. I'm proud to give you John Pasquin.
Always a tough act to follow. The last time I was up here was 53 years ago. Carl Balson, professor in the drama department, was doing a production of the musical The Fantastics, and I was cast in it. Not as El Gallo, the dashing narrator, not as Matt, the young romantic lead with all of the good songs. No, I played Henry, a non-singing role. Henry, the old actor. I was not very good. I was 19 at the time. I would kill in that role now. I'd like to begin by thanking my wife for that lovely introduction. My 1967 classmates, Lena Neal for suggesting my name for this award, President Bierman, and the Alumni Foundation for this distinguished service citation. I think it was Ben Franklin who said that if you present someone with an award that they are not expecting, human nature will dictate that in less than 5 minutes, they will absolutely have figured out exactly why they and they alone should deserve it. I have had no such luck since I've been thinking about this for months. Why would I deserve a distinguished service citation? I get stuck on the word service. What kind of service have I performed over the last 45 or 50 years? And the only answer I've been able to come up with, what I do as a director, is tell stories, usually funny stories, hopefully funny stories, almost always family stories. And that, I guess, is my way of serving. Telling stories is intimately connected with what makes us human. In his book, *Sapiens: A Brief History of Humankind*, Yuval Harari talks about a cognitive revolution that began about 70,000 years ago. Chance mutations in our DNA gave rise to the birth of language. Language used then both for warning, like, look out, there's a lion, and also for information about other humans, who could be trusted, who had your back, who was a cheat, who was reliable, who was good-looking. In other words, gossip. Most likely, both the gossip theory and the look out, there's a lion theory are important to our survival. I mean, a very, very short story entitled, Look Out, There's a Lion, could save your life, if you read it in time. The truly unique feature of our language is not its ability to transmit information about men and women and lions, but rather it's the ability of language to transmit information about things that do not exist at all. Legends, myths, gods, religion all begin with the cognitive revolution. The ability to speak about fiction is the most unique feature of our sapient language. And as far as we know, only sapiens can talk about things that they have never seen, heard, touched, tasted, or smelled. Stories. We can just make stuff up. I mean, look at what's going on in Washington. The book 1001 Arabian Nights reveals the intimate connection between storytelling and survival. Scheherazade tells one story every night for 1,001 nights in order to save her life. Telling stories literally keeps her alive. The stories that I and others tell not only keep the teller alive, but if they're heartfelt and true, keep everybody a little bit more alive. That's not always the case. I mean, look at Ishtar or Howard the Duck. Or for the younger members of the audience, Gigli. Kidding aside, telling stories about the human condition in whatever form, I believe, is a kind of service. Helps us to connect to each other. Early in my career here at Beloit, I was involved in a production of Garcia Lorca's Blood Wedding, directed by Kirk Denmark, the head of the drama department. My mentor, and certainly one of the main reasons that I'm up here today. First day of rehearsals, one of the actors asked Mr. Denmark what this play we were doing was about. And he said, well, if I knew what it was about, I wouldn't be doing it. That's a little disingenuous, but at the heart of that, there's a truth. There's a mystery involved in creating every production, every story. You don't do it because you know what it's about. You do it to find out what it's about. You do it for the mystery. That's the pleasure of directing. That's why you do it. That's why we tell stories. You want to try and solve the mystery. You want to connect. And you also want people to listen to what you have to say. 50 years ago, I set out from my apartment on Emerson Street to give the 1967 commencement speech to my class sitting here today. And as Steve Molly reminded me last night, that speech was called How Youth May Be Served. Kind of a pompous title. But I was young and I was trying. Difference between who I was then and who I am now is that now I'm never assumed that anyone I encounter shares my opinion about anything. But this was then. The point of that speech to our parents and our professors was, listen to us. Let us come into your world just as you have made it. And if we're able to keep our enthusiasms and our passions and our hopes under the burden of the world's responsibilities, then listen to us. We will have stories to tell. One of my downstairs neighbors was a precocious second grader named Emily. She was outside playing as I headed for the gym that morning, and I stopped to talk to her. I asked her how she was doing, what she was studying in school, and she said, well, her favorite class was American geography. And I said, okay, smarty pants, what is the capital of Wisconsin? She looked at me like I was the second grader, and she said, W. And that was the hook. Her answer wasn't what I expected, but she was right. I used that story to open my speech that morning. I wanted the world to listen to us, even if our stories weren't what they were expecting, precisely because our stories wouldn't be what they were expecting. And listening is probably still pretty good advice today, as the country and the media and our representatives are so bound up in their own points of view that there is precious little listening going on. Let's have more listening and less talking, and also a little less tweeting. But, and I'm sure the class of 1967 will agree, not only does listening become harder as you move through the world, hearing itself gets harder and harder as you get older. And with that in mind, I will leave you with this story. Several years ago, I began to notice that my wife's hearing had started to deteriorate. I didn't want to bring it up, since it's a touchy subject. So I went to our internist on advice on how to deal with the situation, and he said, well, usually people can hear normal conversation within 10 feet. So go home, begin talking normally more than 10 feet away, and move closer. And if you're inside of 10 feet when she finally responds, then, well, maybe you should have her come see me. So I did. That night, we were both in the kitchen across the room from each other, and she had her back to me, and I was about 20 feet away. I asked her, "Honey, what's for dinner tonight?" Didn't respond. Moved a little closer and asked again, "What's for dinner?" Still didn't respond, starting to get worried. Finally, I moved about 10 feet away and asked a third time, "Honey, what are we having for dinner tonight?" She turned and looked at me and said, "For the third time, chicken."
John? Yes, what birthday? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very nice to know you. All right, now Margaret Nygren, class of 1987, is our next recipient. And here to introduce her is John Cassells, also her husband and also class of 1987.
Okay. Lest it seem ominous that I'm standing here with 5 sheets of paper, I need everything sort of teleprompter size these days. So, one of the things that Maggie does every year as the CEO of the American Association on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities is to lead an overseas delegation of 20-some-odd disabilities professionals for the purposes of cultural exchange and education. Back from a trip to Japan and South Korea a couple of years ago, she said that among the things she really liked about Japan was the incidental touches of whimsy. Japanese culture was, on the one hand, sober and industrious, but on the other hand, saturated with a sense that there was no reason that the obligatory and the ordinary couldn't also be transportingly fun. Why shouldn't the words of a sign telling you exactly where to stand be delivered by a cartoon octopus wearing a monocle and a top hat? The specifics of that image aside, she could have been talking about herself. For one of Maggie's signal characteristics is wearing not only her learning, but her competence, which is ferocious, lightly. Only the truly accomplished can afford to do that, and the image seems, to me at least, to have something to do with Beloit as well. A quiet sense that you simply know what you're doing, that doesn't so much rule out self-seriousness as make it beside the point. Few who have really known Maggie can fail to have been met by the impression that she is singularly both formidable and approachable. It's a rare combination in the human service field, which attracts all sorts, but not so many who have the intestinal fortitude and the intelligence to be effective over the long haul. Maggie's steady rise from frontline direct service worker to leader of an organization, the top organization, serving professionals in the disabilities field, speaks to her character, which Beloit could only ever hope to direct, and to how well she has always embodied the ideal of a graduate who, in the words of the president of the college in our day, would, and I always get this wrong, so I need to really read it, do well and do good, and make it look easy, although she is, in fact, the hardest working person who I have ever known. A very deserving recipient of this honor, and my wife, Maggie Nygren.
Boy, I sound really good. Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Thank you to the Alumni Association for this extremely touching recognition. I do want to thank the Beloit College Alumni Association for this citation, along with Margaret Lincoln, who nominated me, and the Alumni Office staff for their work in facilitating all aspects of this reunion, including this ceremony, and President Bierman for his leadership of the college. This recognition is particularly meaningful to me, as attending Beloit College was a truly formative experience. I am who I am, and I do what I do due to the experiences, the shaping experiences I had at Beloit. At Beloit, I met the person that I would later marry. You've all met him. Our oldest son graduated from Beloit in 2014. But most fundamentally, at Beloit, I learned how to think, how to find problems, approach their solutions, how to build coalitions based on a common goal. Roger Hull was president of the college during the 1980s. He often spoke, and frankly too often, about the value of a liberal arts education. I sense you recall. I can say that the value of the education that I received at Beloit is and was immeasurable. It prepared me to be a lifelong learner and to successfully navigate what has turned out to be, in the past 30 years, constantly changing environments. One need only consult Tom McBride's mindset list to see just how far reaching those changes have been. Before deciding on a college, I visited Beloit, and for those of you who don't know, during the 1980s, many of the buildings on the campus were, to use a phrase I really like, waiting for the good times. When I told my father that I was impressed with the people that I met on that trip, but that the campus seemed a little bleak, he said, you know, it's the people who are important, not the buildings. And I should say, you do need buildings, and as the college is conducting a capital campaign right now, I do encourage you to contribute to the success of the powerhouse and the campus's physical plan. But possibly I took the lesson about focusing more on the people to heart, as I have spent my career since leaving Beloit in the nonprofit, human services, and social justice arenas. I count myself extremely lucky to have been able to work for and with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and help them achieve their goals. And for me, these have been the good times. Thank you again.
Thank you, Maggie. This next recipient and I served together on the Alumni Board for many years, and so I am honored to announce Jamie Broomfield, of the class of 1982. Here to introduce her is her friend and alumni Susan McClellan, class of 1963.
I definitely need these. Good morning. I feel truly privileged to stand here this morning to introduce Jamie Brumfield to those of you who may not know her. Most of you do. I first met Jamie many years ago when she was 7 years old, bounced into my second grade classroom, sat down, and said, "Hello, Mrs. McClellan, I'm so glad to be in your class." A teacher never forgets something like that. I knew early on that Jamie was a very special child, brighter than most, determined, empathetic beyond her years, and anxious to learn all she could about everything. She set the tone for the classroom that year, and everyone in it was the better for her presence. When I knew I would be here today, I contacted others from our school who had known Jamie and asked for some adjectives to describe her: smart, enthusiastic, kind, organized, focused, that was mentioned several times, creative, that also, helpful, dependable, fun, polite, and to quote another former staff member, a teacher's dream come true. I remember seeing Jamie's mom somewhere when they were looking at colleges for her and suggesting that Beloit might be a good fit. The next thing I knew, I heard that she was headed here, and just as I myself experienced so many years ago, Beloit was the right place for Jamie. Beloit has been the beneficiary too. Jamie showed interest right away in communications by becoming involved with the Roundtable and also in technology by completing an honors course in that area. These two became her focus. Jamie's enthusiasm for and her love of Beloit College has shown in so many ways since her graduation. We became reacquainted with Jamie while she was serving as president of the Alumni Board. She's given of her time, talents, and enthusiasm in so many other ways too, hosting innumerable Beloiter events in Chicago and staying involved continually through social media. Jamie and her husband, David Burwell, class of '94, founded Your Plan B Company in 1997, which develops websites for clients and assists them in developing product strategies and brand identity. I hope I understand what you do, Jamie. The company helps clients look at how their internet initiatives fit into their overall business strategies. Jamie serves the company in the role of a very involved president, using her many creative talents. She and David are a real team. It's a great joy to present this, our college's highest alumni award, to Jamie Brumfield, of whom I personally am very proud for all that she is, excuse me, and continues to be to her college, her community, and her career.
Wow. Gotta take this in. So first and foremost, thank you, Mrs. McClellan. I'm so glad to be here today with you. A huge, huge thank you to friends, family, and fellow Beloiters for being here today. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. And thank you for this moment. And you know what? I think this moment needs a selfie. So everyone squish in a little bit. There we go. All right. Everyone smile. Now I feel like myself. Okay. Whew. All right. It is an honor to be in the company of so many incredible Beloiters. I see a lot of you out there. Beloit College is every day for me. Just ask my friends. I don't think I go 24 hours without telling something about Beloit College. Treasured memory, insight from class, a current event on campus, an inside joke with Dave, and introducing hopeful new students. I owe Beloit College so much, and I am working off that debt every day. I am thrilled knowing that Beloit College is here for each of us, here to remember back to the good old days, to right this very minute, and further into the future. As you might have guessed, I will always be cheering Go Beloit every single day. So, go Beloit! Now it's your turn. Oh, no, I can't hear you. Go Beloit!
Go Beloit!
So go Beloit, and thank you very much. All right. I should remember this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. It's so ridiculous. This is so easy. I know all these people. I don't know what's going on. I need to go off script. Next is Ann Molly, the member of a class of 1982, and introducer is Diane Lichtenstein, Beloit College professor of English.
Hi, everybody. It is my very great honor to present Anne Molly to you. I met Anne in her first semester at Beloit in Introduction to Literary Studies. I had the good fortune to work with her in 2 additional courses, one of which was in her final semester, the Senior Seminar in Women's Studies, whose focus was women in creativity that semester. I had to move out of my office this spring, and I found myself discovering 20 and 30-year-old treasures. One was Anne's project paper from that senior seminar. Yes, I had kept it. I confess that I did end up recycling it, along with multiple 2-foot-tall stacks of my own paperwork. But I spent a few minutes rereading paragraphs and reflecting on the remarkable depth and breadth of the significant research Anne conducted. Not knowing at that moment she would be receiving this Distinguished Service Citation, I thought to myself, what a talented and inspiring individual. I'm also quoting President Hull. President Roger Hull always advised graduating seniors at the conclusion of commencement to do good and do well. Although Anne graduated after she would have heard him make that pronouncement, she followed President Hull's advice and for the past 25 years has done good and important work in the world. Her career as an attorney included studying Bosnian judges and attorneys and litigating cases in federal and state courts regarding the downlisting of the gray wolf under the Endangered Species Act. And, of course, her work with Teach for America. In true Beloit fashion, Anne left campus ready to repair the world and headed for the Rio Grande Valley of Texas to teach for Teach for America. After 2 years of teaching, she served as executive director of the Seattle office and director of a math and science initiative. In 2004, she returned to Teach for America. She currently serves as Senior Vice President of Public Partnerships and manages government affairs, national community alliances, federal and state funding, and public policy work. In the best of Beloit College traditions, Anne Molly has devoted her professional life to reimagining and reconstructing a better world for all of us. Congratulations, Anne, on this great honor.
Thank you. Diane, thank you so much for the incredibly kind words, and thank you to Todd and the Alumni Board for this honor. When I think of my many fellow classmates and the work that they do every day that impacts the world in profound and positive ways, I'm truly humbled to receive this award. When I hear about someone like Barbara Roth, who blazed trails for generations to come and innovated in classic Beloit fashion in 2 completely different fields, it's a constant reminder that Beloit is a special place. As in most things in life, I follow in the footsteps of incredible leaders, including my parents, Kathy Austin Molly and Steve Molly, who are here to celebrate their 50th reunion. And because both of my parents attended Beloit, as a 17-year-old, I certainly didn't want to follow their lead. But there was something about this place when I visited that led me here. And I distinctly remember calling them 1 week into this adventure that was Beloit from the payphone in the basement of 609. And I simply said, "This is where I belong." And we were all relieved. While writing papers for Diane and many others, I would always have the Talking Heads album Remain in Light on continuous play in my room. It was a tape. And the lyrics for Once in a Lifetime still stick with me. David Byrne sings, "You may find yourself living in a shotgun shack. You may find yourself in another part of the world. You may find yourself behind the wheel of a large automobile." Never that. "You may find yourself in a beautiful house with a beautiful wife, and you may ask yourself, how did I get here?" I hear those lyrics in my head, and I know exactly how I got here. The experiences I had and the lessons I learned at Beloit led me here. At Beloit, I learned 3 foundational lessons. Experiences, especially those that are hard, matter. Second, we are all part of the inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny, described so beautifully by Dr. King in his letter from a Birmingham jail. and that when I can couple the willingness to take on challenging experiences with the belief that being in relationship with others is the key to progress, it is the key to impact and to ultimately justice. Whether it was internships in state government, teaching at a refugee camp in Central America, learning about the formation of igneous rocks, which was the hardest class I took at Beloit, and knowledge that I aptly applied 16 years later on my honeymoon in Iceland, to writing an honors thesis that pushed my thinking and required me to apply centuries-old political theory to the modern women's movement. The experiences I had at Beloit and the relationships I built with friends, professors, mentors, profoundly shaped my life. These experiences gave me insight and confidence, joy and laughter, and enough knowledge to know just how much I had to learn, and the curiosity and courage to seek it out. It led me to Teach for America in the Rio Grande Valley, where the experiences I had with children and their families living in the colonias on the border with Mexico have been the through line of all of my choices. I have a tremendous amount of gratitude to Beloit as an institution, and there are a few people I have to mention in particular who shaped my thinking and my character. Georgia Durst-Lottie, who is my thesis advisor and still provides advice and books on Congress 25 years later. Diane Lichtenstein, whose novel choices still sit on my shelves, and I eagerly await the days when my daughters will be able to read them. John Rapp, who had the good fortune to be my professor in the fall of 1989 in the class State Socialist Systems, when every day as the Berlin Wall fell and different countries changed their governments, I learned the power of people to create change. To Milt Fader, yes, yes, who blended political theory with novels and profoundly changed the way that I look at every armed conflict. To Lisa Haynes Wright and Stephen Wright, who were present, funny, and gave me confidence in my writing. To Parker Martin, who recently passed away, who gave me more responsibility for the college's direction than any student should likely have. And to Bill Flanagan, who was patient with a kid who wanted to bring the revolution on a regular basis. To all of these people, and especially to my classmates, I have profound gratitude. I would not have made the choices I made without the confidence I gained at Beloit and without the insights as well. Thank you.
I had the opportunity to be on campus with the last 3 recipients, and all I can say is everything you've heard today is true. It is a great crew, great crew. I would now like to ask Beloit College Professor of Political Science and Manager Chair of International Relations, Beth Dougherty, to come forward. She's going to receive the Young Alumni Award today by presenting it to Zainab Al-Khawaja. Zainab cannot be with us today, and as you will hear, she has endured harrowing circumstances in support of human rights.
If it makes everybody feel better, my notes are in 20-point font, and I've got the reading glasses on too. Zainab came to Beloit in 2005 as a member of the State Department's PLUS program. The idea was to help talented and courageous young leaders in the Muslim world to come to the United States to hone their skills, finish their educations, and to go home to become leaders in promoting democracy in the Middle East. I had the privilege of having Zainab in 2 classes. She was outspoken, passionate, and highly visible across campus the entire time that she was here. One of my favorite memories of Zainab is in my human rights class. Students were allowed to pick any subject that they wished to lead a class on as a group project, and she and her group chose the issue of headscarves in European countries. And to the complete and utter amazement of the rest of her classmates, Zainab spent an hour explaining to all of them why she believed that the secular principles that France defended, which said that women should not be allowed to wear headscarves in public spaces, actually deserved to be defended. She could have taken the easy way, since she was wearing a headscarf herself, to explain why wearing headscarves is a matter of principle in a democratic society, but instead she chose to do the hard thing. Zainab is from Bahrain. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Bahrain, it is a small island in the Persian Gulf connected by a causeway to Saudi Arabia. It has a Sunni monarchy that has been ruling over an overwhelmingly Shia majority population for 200 years. When Bahrainis peacefully gathered in demonstrations during the 2011 Arab Spring, the regime cracked down hard, eventually calling in Saudi troops to crush the uprising. The regime was so determined to oppress any sign of its population's calls for participatory democracy and the freedoms that we take for granted, speech, association, assembly, and a free press, that it bulldozed Bahrain's best-known monument, the graceful Pearl Monument, because it had stood at the center of the site of those protests. The regime has continued to commit massive violations of human rights in its efforts to keep itself in power, including killing 5 unarmed protesters who were doing a sit-in roughly 2 weeks ago. The United States has been reluctant to pressure Bahrain because the U.S. Fifth Fleet is headquartered there. The Obama administration eventually linked U.S. arms sales to specific human rights improvements in Bahrain's record, but in his recent trip to the Middle East, President Trump told the Bahraini king that there would be no strain in U.S. relations. The restrictions on those arms sales have been lifted. Zainab has become a leader of the pro-democracy movement in her home country and one of the most eloquent and principled voices of protest during the Arab Spring. This has come at great personal cost. She has been arrested 11 times. She has served over a year in prison. Her crime? She ripped up a photograph of the king in public. Her father is serving a life sentence. He is the leader of the most prestigious and longest existing human rights organization in Bahrain. In the face of tremendous international pressure, Zainab was released from prison in May of 2016. But the Bahraini government also informed her she would be arrested again and have to serve a lengthy sentence if she did not leave the country. Believing that she had done all she could from a prison cell and unwilling to risk being separated from her 2 young children again, she reluctantly went into exile. She continues her heroic struggle for freedom for Bahrain from Denmark, and her courage and commitment and deep love for her country remain undimmed. Zainab will not be silenced, and one day I hope we can welcome here as a citizen of a free Bahrain. Zainab has sent us remarks which she has asked me to read to you. Let me first begin by saying what an honor it is for me to receive this award and how humble I am to have been chosen. The time I spent at Beloit College helped equip me with some of the very tools that I've been using in the uprising in Bahrain, in doing my part to fight for human rights and democracy in my country. Not only did my education in Beloit affect me, but throughout the revolution, I would remember lessons and professors who left a great mark on how I worked or thought. Let me mention a few, although they all had their impact, and I am grateful to all for their efforts. When I was on social media tweeting about protests, it was Sean Gillam's journalism classes that taught me how to express myself better. And when I was in a prison cell surrounded by my books, it was his deconstruction classes that made me consider through which lens I was reading each of them. It was Beth Doherty's classes that taught me to be more of a realist. I had been a pure idealist, and I think if I had not had all those lessons in history and human rights atrocities, I would not have been able to handle a lot of the things I was exposed to. The truth is, Doherty's political science classes and Gillam's guidance in my Arabic literature project also taught me so much about my own history and language. When my father was on his longest hunger strike and we feared for his life, John Rosenweld's poetry classes gave me the ability to express my feelings through poetry, which I now know is a way of survival, a way to be able to express oneself. Of course, some of the classes I took did not help improve my skills at all, to the disappointment of some of my professors, and I must admit I still have a big problem with run-on sentences. Also, despite taking public speaking classes at Beloit, I continue to not be a very powerful public speaker, except when I feel the issue at hand is of great importance. While I spoke well on the quad about civilians killed in Iraq, I sure hope my classmates don't remember my speeches in Arabic or in class on Arabic dishes and pet peeves. I think I hid my hands so they wouldn't see them shaking. These past 6 years have not been easy. Putting what I have been through aside, I must say that being a witness to the suffering of so many others has been very heartbreaking. Yes, I have been beaten and insulted, but I have documented hundreds of cases of other people who were tortured in ways that even hearing the details of which was unbearably painful, and those included my father, uncle, and husband. Yes, I was imprisoned, but I have to live with the fact that I have been released while most of the people I know are still inside those prisons, with sentences that could keep them there for the rest of their lives. I have been injured, but I have also seen protesters shot in their eyes. I have seen the bodies of dead, peaceful protesters, bodies of children as young as 14. These are faces I cannot forget. These are families I mourned with. And though we have fought hard and long, we, the people of Bahrain, are living in a worse situation today than when this revolution started. It is very frustrating to realize that not only monarchies are allied against us, but also democratic governments who feel being friends with dictators is more beneficial to them. While it is fun to listen to Colbert and others and laugh at the expense of Trump, it is not funny when you know a few words from this man has gotten people killed in my country. Several days after Trump assured the King of Bahrain that there would no longer be any strain in the relationship between the two countries, the regime attacked a peaceful sitting, killing 5 people. The only non-governmental newspaper was shut down. The last remaining political society has been closed. The few remaining activists on the ground were tortured